The Valkyrie had never seen a creature quite like the one that stumbled from the escape pod. It was taller than any Valkyrie, with pale skin burned red by Valkar's twin suns. Its vessel had crashed in the northern desert, far from the farming communes where the Valkyrie tended their modest crops. The creature collapsed on the sand, its strange vocalizations carrying no meaning to the Valkyrie scouts who found it. Elder Sherma approached cautiously, her forearms carrying water and dried fruit from her personal rations. The creature, its suit identified it as human, was dying. That much was clear even to someone who had never seen its species before. Its breathing was labored, its movements weak. She offered the fruit. The human's eyes, so strange, with white surrounding the colored parts, focused on the offering. Trembling hands accepted the dried berries. It ate slowly, reverently, water streaming down its face from glands the Valkyrie didn't possess. "Thank you," the translation device finally managed, its voice rough and broken. "Thank you." The human survived. The Valkyrie named her Sarah Chen, though the phonetics were difficult for their vocal structures. She lived among them for 18 cycles, learning their language, sharing their food, working in their fields. She taught them songs from her world and listened to their histories. She helped dig irrigation channels with a strength that surprised them and carefully rationed the emergency supplies from her pod to avoid burdening her hosts. The Valkyrie were a kind people, but they were poor. Their planet was harsh, too little rain, too much sun, soil that grudgingly yielded thin harvests. They shared what little they had because that was their way. When the rescue ship finally appeared in their sky, Sarah Chen stood before Elder Sherma with water streaming from her eyes again. "I can never repay you," Sarah said. "You gave me life when you had so little to spare." Sherma touched Sarah's strange, five-fingered hand with her own. "We gave you what anyone should give. Go home, Sarah Chen. Be well." The human ship departed. The Valkyrie returned to their fields and their modest lives. They had no idea what they had begun. 3 months later, a fleet of ships appeared over Valkar. Elder Sherma stood with the Planetary Council, their hearts hammering with ancient fear. Invasion. It had to be invasion. They had nothing worth taking, but perhaps that wouldn't matter to a species with such massive vessels. A shuttle descended, and Sarah Chen emerged, but she was not alone. Behind her came hundreds of humans, carrying equipment, seeds, machinery, and materials the Valkyrie had no names for. Sarah approached Sherma and knelt, a gesture of respect she had learned from the Valkyrie themselves. "You gave food to a stranger," Sarah said. "Now we give food to you." What followed was a transformation that the Valkyrie would speak of for 10,000 generations. The humans called themselves agricultural engineers, xenobotanists, terraforming specialists, and water systems experts. They spoke with rapid excitement about soil composition and atmospheric nitrogen and aquifer depths. They showed the Valkyrie images of Earth, a planet of impossible green, where plants grew so thick you couldn't see the ground. "We can't make Valkar into Earth," a human named Dr. Yuki Tanaka explained, her translation device working flawlessly. "Every world is unique. But we can make Valkar into the best version of itself." The humans studied Valkar's ecology with an intensity that bordered on religious fervor. They analyzed every native plant, every microorganism in the soil, every pattern of wind and rain. They didn't try to replace what was there, they enhanced it. They engineered drought-resistant variants of Valkyrie crops using genetic modifications so subtle that the plants remained essentially themselves, just stronger. They introduced nitrogen-fixing bacteria tailored to Valkar's soil chemistry. They built solar-powered atmospheric water collectors that pulled moisture from the air even in the driest regions. And they brought trees. Not earth trees, those would have been invasive, destructive. Instead, they had spent 3 months aboard their ships analyzing the Valkyrie genetic samples Sarah had brought home, crafting new cultivars of native Valkyrie fruit trees. Trees that could survive the harsh climate but bore fruit in abundance. Trees whose root systems would stabilize the soil and whose leaves would provide shade for other crops. "We call it companion planting," Dr. Tanaka explained to Sherma as they stood in what had once been barren desert. Now, small saplings dotted the landscape in careful patterns, each one surrounded by support systems. The trees protect the smaller plants. The smaller plants enriched the soil for the trees. Everything helps everything else. But why? Sherma asked, her voice quiet with wonder. We gave you so little. Just one life. Just some dried fruit. Dr. Tanaka smiled, and Sherma had learned enough about humans to recognize the emotion. Elder Sherma, do you know what we call it when someone shares food with a stranger who has nothing to offer in return? What? Humanity. Dr. Tanaka gestured to the teams of workers, human and Valkyrie together, planting trees in geometric patterns across the desert. Sarah told us your people used a word shirka for the principle that life must be preserved, even at cost to oneself. We have the same principle. We just express it differently. By transforming worlds? By making sure that kindness never goes unanswered. 5 years later, Elder Sherma stood in the same spot where she had offered fruit to a dying alien. The northern desert was gone. In its place stretched an orchard that reached the horizon, native Valkyrie fruit trees engineered for abundance, their branches heavy with produce in shades of purple and gold. Between the trees grew complementary crops. Grains, vegetables, nitrogen fixers, and ground cover. Water flowed through efficient irrigation channels that recycled every drop. Solar panels disguised as shade structures powered automated systems that monitored soil health and weather patterns. But it wasn't just technology. The humans had taught the Valkyrie new agricultural techniques, new ways of working with their world rather than struggling against it. They had established universities to train Valkyrie scientists. They had shared freely every piece of knowledge they had. The Valkyrie would never go hungry again. Sarah Chen had stayed. She had taken a Valkyrie name and married into Sherma's clan, an honor that still made the old elder's chest swell with pride. She worked in the orchards every day, teaching young Valkyrie the songs her own grandmother had sung while farming on Earth. Your people are strange, Sherma said to Sarah as they walked through the fruit-laden trees. We gave you a handful of berries. You gave us abundance that will last forever. Sarah picked a ripe fruit from a low branch and offered it to Sherma, the same gesture Sherma had made 5 years earlier. My people have a saying, to plant a tree is to believe in tomorrow. You believed in my tomorrow when you had every reason not to. We're just making sure your tomorrows are worth believing in. Sherma accepted the fruit. It was the size of her head, sweet and perfect, from a tree that had been engineered with love and gratitude. Around them, Valkyrie children played in the shade while their parents harvested enough food to feed 10 times their number. Humanity, Sherma said softly, testing the word. To be human means to share food with strangers. To be human, Sarah corrected gently, means to recognize humanity in others. You taught us that, Elder. We're just returning the lesson. Above them, another human ship entered orbit, the 73rd to arrive since the project began, bringing more specialists, more resources, more determination to turn an act of simple kindness into something eternal. The Valkyrie had shared their fruit with a stranger. Humanity had responded by making sure they would never run out of fruit to share. And in the orchards of Valkar, where water flowed in trees bent heavy with abundance, both species learned that the most human thing of all was the recognition that kindness, once given, creates an obligation not to the giver, but to the universe itself, to pass it forward, to multiply it, to ensure that no one who extends a hand in compassion ever regrets it. The garden grew, and it would grow forever.